Hello, everyone. This is Things I Learned, Episode 8. I am your host, Lorenzo Melcher. If you're new to this podcast, this is where I recap my week and tell you 5 things I learned. Sometimes it's brand new things. Sometimes it's things that are reiterated. Sometimes it's a question I ask to people to learn things. So it's a lot of different things. I keep saying things a lot, but hey, it's in the title. So I'm bound to say it a lot. So this is episode 8. As always, I do want to thank all of you for always downloading the podcast, sharing it, subscribing it, reaching out when you have questions or possibly things you learned. This past episode, things I learned, I talked a lot about all kinds of stuff, as I always do. Please, again, this is the 8th episode, so please check out the other 7 episodes if you're interested. I did want to shout out my George S. He sent a text and was talking about things I learned. So on the big show, which comes out every Thursday, I talked to my friend Scott Euchre, and we were talking about mechanics. And he said a good rule of thumb, or he always did, was that asked if the mechanic could give you back the old parts. They're legally have to set them aside for you. So if you want to know if your mechanic is a good mechanic or you're interested in learning how to fix things or what's broken, you can ask for parts to like, hey, yeah, show me what's broken. And when he told me a story one time, he actually did this after agreeing to some work once, and the mechanic called him and was like, hey, good news, actually, we can refinish this rather than replacing it. So maybe he was always an honest mechanic, or maybe by asking for parts, they were like, oh shit, we should probably try as much as we can to fix this car. So, excuse me. So I just want to put that out there about mechanics. If you find a good mechanic, and you trust them, maybe you don't have to do this. But if it's brand new mechanic, you can always say, hey, can I see my broken parts? Just so you know what you're looking at. Again, you can frame it as like, you don't have to frame it as I'm not trusting you. Just frame it as I want to know what's going on with my car. So that's if you want to use that, go ahead. Also, if you have a good mechanic, mine I think is closing up shop. So if you have a good mechanic, send them to me. You can always reach out to nerdballpodcast@gmail.com to see if you have any good mechanics in the Perrysburg, Toledo area. All right. Well, let's get to this week's things I learned. Again, episode 8. They're all on the same feed as the Nerdball podcast, so you can find them all there. Scroll back and see how terribly, and if you want to see it on YouTube, see how terrible my PowerPoint presentations are. So, first thing I learned, 40. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it's a picture of somebody in a wheelchair. I thought it was so funny that the day before my 40th birthday, which was last Tuesday, my back started to hurt really bad. And I didn't miss any work, but it was definitely tough working this last week because of my back. And then I was reminded, yeah, I'm 40 now. Now that doesn't mean your body just instantly starts, hey, you're 40, I'm going to start breaking down on you. It takes a lot more, right? Obviously to do that. But it just reminded me like, okay, I'm 40. I should probably start doing some other things. And so when someone asks, well, how'd you hurt your back? The answer is, I don't know. It just happened. So I sneezed. Also, when your back is hurt, you're terrified to do any bodily function, cough, sneeze, go to the rest, anything, because that sudden jerk can be very painful depending on what you're doing. So anyway, 40. Yes, I just turned 40. My body's breaking down on me, but I'm not going to let it stop me from doing everything I want to do, hopefully. All right. Number 2, peanuts. I learned at a party I had for my 40th birthday that a lot of people were asking me, why do I like the Peanuts or Charlie Brown so much? Snoopy, the whole gang. And I had to answer the question. I guess I never really thought of it because I've always just liked them. It was just always there. And so I sat down and I had to think, and I think it comes from my grandma. I just remember specifically watching it at my grandma's house, specifically the Easter one. where I think it was Snoopy and Woodstock were coloring Easter eggs, and I think it was probably because that tie to my grandma, and then we would color eggs over there. So I think that's where it started, and I just never let it go, and it just, I don't know, makes me feel good when I watch it. Any of those specials. I used to read the comic strip all the time. My dad would bring home the newspaper from work, and I'd read that. And I was just having a conversation with my dad about it because I think he asked me too. And I just remember as a kid, we would talk about it. And then when Charles Schultz was done writing the comic strip, everyone was speculating like, oh, what's he going to do? What's the last one going to be? Is Charlie Brown finally going to kick the football? Or is Snoopy going to shoot down the Red Baron? Like, all these things. And, the last comic strip he ever wrote was Snoopy at a typewriter. And he was just thanking everyone. Charles Schultz was thanking everyone for always reading the comics. And that, I never thought about that until I talked to my dad about it a few days ago. So if anybody's listening, that is why I enjoy the Peanuts so much. Also, the music is very good. Vince Giardi Trio. I love the Peanuts music. So that's another added layer to this. But yeah, I don't know. I have a couple shirts I like to wear. I got a poster for my birthday that I'll put somewhere, maybe in my basement. I got... there's Christmas decorations, obviously. My parents had a bunch of decorations for my birthday party that they have. So I have all these things, and it is fun. I do enjoy it. And I don't know, maybe it's just my last bits of being a child is just tied into the Peanuts. So number 2. On to number 3. Kids. I know it's a very broad topic, but I like to try to stick to one word if I can. So kids is the word. And it was funny because we were playing pool at my parents' house with my friend, Matt, and his wife, and my wife and I were down here too. And then our 2 daughters were playing together. And I didn't really think too much of it until my wife's like, hey, do you guys ever like sit and think right now, like your daughters are playing with each other? Like you guys used to hang out in high school, and now your daughters who are the same age are playing together. And it was like it wasn't surreal, but it was like, oh man, yeah, it was kind of cool. And I don't know what the thing I learned is. I mean, I knew we both had daughters and I knew they were both the same age, but it was like a revelation of like, oh yeah, our children are playing. We have children that are now playing together. And it was like a cool thing when my wife said that. It's like, of course, like, yeah, it's neat. It's neat to see, and they're having fun. And it's, with kids, you can go 6 months without seeing somebody, and then you see them again, and it's your best friend. So it was cool to like see them playing, and they spent the whole night together, just running around the house, playing different games, fighting with my daughter's older brother. My son. So like it was and his friends. So it was just cool to see, and I'm glad my wife said something because I didn't even think about it, and I kind of just sat for a few minutes to think about it, and it was a very cool thing. It was very interesting, and hopefully it will happen more because it was fun, and they don't live. I mean, they only live a couple hours away, so it's not like that can't ever happen. In fact, they live. My parents, where we were at, my parents live 30 seconds away from my friend's parents where they were staying. So it was a fun night. It was a fun time to see them do that. And as they get older, and whether they stay friends or not, whatever. But in that moment, it was cool for my wife to say like, hey, your kids are playing with each other. It was just a cool thing. Number 4. Number 4 is Euchre. Excuse me. Euchre. So, and I moved to Perrysburg when I was a freshman in high school and never knew what Euchre was. And it is one of the biggest things, probably most popular things we did in high school legally. And it had just stuck with us for so long. And if you guys don't know how to play Euchre, it is a hard game if you don't know anything about it. Excuse me. And it is also it is very fun, but also one of the hardest games to teach people, and it gets frustrating. But the reason I put on things I learned is this is one of those things that reiterated with me because I don't play it all that often anymore. And really, I only play it when I'm with my high school friends. And the last time I played it was in last June, and then we played it again at my birthday party. And it was just fun to sit, play cards, listen to music, and just hang out. And Euchre usually is that thing that ties whatever the night is together. And if you're with us and you don't know how to play Euchre, I'm sorry. It is what it is. It is such a fun game, and again, we haven't played it in a while. And to sit down and play with friends, and to think about all the times we played. We talked about all the people who we've played with, and how so and so is a bad partner, or this person's a good partner, or we used to have high school tournaments, and that were sponsored by the school. We were in there playing it in school when we probably should have been paying attention to the teacher. Like all these things, just all this nostalgia that comes with playing Euchre, and then obviously winning. That's fun too. And but yeah, it's such a fun game. If you don't know how to play Euchre, please learn, because it is fun, especially when you find more people that, you know how to play Euchre. I'm also learning as my friends move away to other places. It is a very, for me around here, it is a very like localized game. I had a friend who moved to Pittsburgh. No one knows what Euchre is there. I had friends that moved to Dallas. I don't think people play Euchre there. At least they haven't said anything about it. Like, it is very local here for whatever reason. Now, I'm sure people play other places. In fact, if you play Euchre and you're from some other part of the country, or in a different country, hit me up at the nerdballpodcast@gmail.com. Let me know where you play Euchre. It is. I'd like to see how far this game is, because wherever I've been, it just doesn't seem like it's there. So, number 4, Euchre. Number 5, grief. Grief. I almost made the entire thing I learned about this one topic. A few days ago, I think it was last Thursday, I woke up and I was on TikTok, and I was just scrolling, and I saw this video. If you don't know, it was Shannon and Sterling Sharp. If you don't know who they are both brothers in the NFL, or they were. They're both retired now. And Shannon played for the Broncos, and Sterling played for the Packers. And I watched Shannon Sharp, who's already in the NFL Hall of Fame. I watched him tell his brother that he also made the Hall of Fame. So the first set of brothers ever to be in the Hall of Fame. And then I was like, oh man, I remember his speech. And I went back and looked at Shannon Sharp's speech that he made when he was inducted. And his brother was on stage, I believe. But he had, at that point, he wasn't in the Hall of Fame. And he said, Shannon Sharp, the younger brother, was saying, I'm the only person of all the people, all the football players and the coaches and stuff in the Hall of Fame, I'm the only person who's the second best player in their own family. And everyone started, clapping, hooting, and hollering, and Sterling Sharp started crying. And then I started thinking about my brother, who, if you don't know, my brother in 2020 passed away from a drug overdose, and he was my older brother. And now I am older than he. He died when he was 38, and I'm 40, and I'm older than him, than he ever got to be. So I started thinking of my brother, and as I'm walking to my car, I can kind of feel something like welling up a little bit. I'm like, all right, whatever, I'll be all right. And then as I start driving, I can't control myself, and I just start crying. I'm crying as I'm trying to get on the highway. And then finally I'm okay, but I had to call my mom. And I called my mom in the morning and tried not to panic her as her son's calling her at 6 o'clock in the morning crying, and just talk to her about it. And I don't know what it was. And I've never really cried for my brother, and it's been 4.5 years. I'm sad. I've talked to my therapist about it in the past, and she would say, it's like, you're mad at him. So that's an emotion also. But I've never really cried about it. And I just started thinking at that moment when I was crying, or maybe what propelled me to cry, I was just thinking of things that he did for me. Like when I moved to Perrysburg when I was a freshman, I asked a girl to homecoming dance, and she said no, which is fine. I was fine. I'm sure at the time I was 14 and I was a new kid, and this girl said no, and it sucked. And but my brother called 4 of his friends who were girls from Toledo, where he moved from, and me and him and 4 girls went to the dance. And he didn't have to do that, but that's something he did for me. Whether he just wanted to go to the dance anyway, or he was like, oh, my little brother wanted to go to the dance. The girl said no, so I'll get this worked out. I'll figure it out and help him. So I started, just thinking more of those things. And that's what I told my mom, and it just assured me that, there was a lot of things I did that I think about now. Like, could I have done that, or should I have done that? There was a time where I told my brother that he couldn't see my son. And I think my son was 3 at the time, maybe 2 or 3. And I was like, you can't see him. I don't know. 'Cause I don't know what's going on, and he on the phone, he's like, I get it. I understand, I'll be better and I'll see him again. And, and eventually he was around more and that was fine. But there was a lot of times like that where I was like, no, I can't do this, or you can't do this. And it was frustrating. It was frustrating when he was supposed to be there on Christmas, and then he wasn't. And my grandma was, at the time, my grandma was alive still, and she was sad because he wasn't there. And, all these things that I get mad about, or that I could have handled different, I start thinking about. And, I guess to take it back to the thing I learned about grief is that it's never away. It's never fully gone, I should say. And it could strike up or pop up whenever. And this one just happened to be 4.5 years later, where I never really cried like this for my brother. And it just hit me. And, hopefully there's some of you listening who haven't experienced grief like this. And I really haven't experienced it. I mean, I went through it because my brother died, but I'm still dealing with it. And, hopefully you can deal with it a little better maybe, or, make sure you're talking to someone about it, whether it's a loved one or a therapist, and I think that's what helped me kind of initially, was my therapist. But it was a shocking thing. And then all day I felt just like some sort of weight on my shoulders, and I was able to get my work done. And I love work, so it was nice to be there. And, I left a little early just to come home and fall asleep on the couch, take a nap. And so that was good too. But yeah, just I guess the overall message is, it'll hit you when you don't think it will, or not even expecting it. But just make sure you're taking care of yourself, taking care of your loved ones, and doing everything you can to get through it. You're never totally through it, but get through it and be the most healthy person you can when you're dealing with grief. So that is number 5. As always, thanks to all of you for doing anything you can to help this podcast. If you have a thing you learned or want to respond to anything, just email thenerdballpodcast@gmail.com. Or for those of you who have my phone number, you could just text me. That's good too. You can reach any social media, just search the Nerdball Podcast. And of course, go to the YouTube. You know what? For my birthday, if you're listening to this and you're not subscribed on the YouTube page, go to YouTube, hit the bell. Let's get more subscribers. I'm creeping towards 200. It is fun to see those numbers go up. It is very depressing. Not depressing, I shouldn't say that, especially talking about grief. It's very sad when I'm like, oh, a couple went up, and then 2 days later, one decides, it's not for me. And I think, what in my videos did you see? You're like, nope, you know what? This is not for me. It'd be nice to know that. So if you subscribed and then unsubscribed, let me know what made you unsubscribe. So maybe I can be better. Anyway, do it however you want to help the podcast. I know that you can subscribe and follow on all the places where you listen to it too. So do that for me. Write a review, give me some stars, whatever it is you can help. I appreciate everything. So until next week, I love you. Keep learning.